looks like people are able to sign on now and are joining us. And if those who do join us could just in the chat room say good morning, and that would help us keep track of who's all in the conversation. That'd be great. And I'm seeing some names of folks that are long-term colleagues and folks that have been doing this work with us for a long time. So it's awesome. It's like we got the band back together again. So it's great. We have people joining us from across the state. Sean, quick question for you is, are you gonna, do you wanna bring up the slides when you're ready, or do you want me to do your slides for you?
No, I'll bring them up.
Okay.
It's always nicer instead of having to say next and next, you know.
Right.
I'll bring them up.
All right, I'm gonna get my, the video up on the screen then. We've got Flagstaff, we've got San Carlos, we've got Avondale, Tempe, all sorts of folks joining us this morning. Somerton is in the house. Greater Surprise, Pendergast. First things first. We've got
ADE.
ADE, yep. Valley of the Sun, United Way. Read on Avondale, read on Phoenix. Yay.
See Mo from Head Start.
Awesome. We're just gonna let people keep coming in, give us a couple minutes. Even though it's 10 o'clock, we'll just sort of, we've got about, I think, 50 folks, and we, as I said, we're expecting a good number. So we've got more people logging in. I should have had some reading music for the background, like instead of dental music, it could have been reading music. I'll work on my soundtrack for us next time. Give everybody one more minute, and then we'll just go ahead and get started. And again, if you joined, if you wouldn't mind just saying hello to everyone in the chat so we have a record that you're here, and it also just gives us a great idea of all the partners represented across the state that are joining us this morning. So. And our numbers are climbing back, and so great. So fun to see all the names of folks across the state that are joining us to help us celebrate what maybe not everyone knew is this is Campaign for Grade Level Reading Week in July, and this year it's entirely virtual. So this is our contribution to the celebration for Grade Level Reading Week, is to have this fun and informative panel, and I'm excited to be able to share our work not just with folks from Arizona, but folks across the campaign. So the other, and it looks like we've got quite a few more people still joining us, but I'll go ahead and just start, do a quick introduction overview, and then share the video that I wanted to kind of kick things off with. So when I was asked by the Campaign for Grade Level Reading to think about what we could do to celebrate and what kind of virtual event we could host, immediately my thoughts went to the case study project that we had just completed, because it really does highlight and praise and shine a great spotlight on work that is, first of all, they were selected due to data that they had results across 3 to 5 years of trend data that showed they had made the most improvements on third grade reading in the state. And then second, they were inherently collaborative in when we approached them to ask them to, if we could come for a site visit, their immediate response was yes. And when we said, oh, and by the way, can you pull together everyone you think should be in that site visit to share what you think is contributing to your results, the amazing 360 sort of perspective that they pulled together from staff that were vital, administration, teachers, of course, paraprofessionals, parent liaisons, library and reading specialists, and school counselors, everyone that really showed their team spirit. So we were excited that case studies did exactly what we were hoping in being able to share and shout about good work across the state as far as really accelerating outcomes for our students around reading. And so the case study project is just one piece, but then I've gotten to know all of you and each of you. And Sean, you've been such a great partner in this work. And it really was the Department of Ed, Read On, and then the State Board of Ed that said it's important to be able to highlight what's happening that's good and what's happening that's exceptional around reading. And so that was my answer to the campaign, is this is what we want to do. This is a conversation that we want to share broadly and allow our partners across the state to hear and ask questions around. So with that, I am going to share my screen and put up what I hope you can all see now is a video that will kick us off for the campaign. Can you all shake your head if you can see it and hear it?
The reality is that we dealt with this issue of summer learning loss for a very long time. We've dealt with this issue of what happens to students between those months of June and those months of September when they get back, knowing that for many students, particularly the students who we have to fight for and support the most, that is going to be a difficult period, and it could be until November until they catch up to where they left off in June. What happens if a student now has not logged in since February? What happens if a student has not had consistent Wi-Fi or consistent technology since the spring? What happens to that student? These learning delays that are experienced by young learners has interrupted their ability to develop fundamental skills. Our job is to make sure that can't stand. And so to all of you whose responsibility, not just your job responsibility, but frankly your moral responsibility, and the things that you have devoted your life to, that for you to make sure that our students are not falling behind, but instead that they're forging ahead. For you to make sure that when all these conversations about what does it mean to rebuild and what does it mean to sustain and what does it mean to re-enter back, if we aren't putting our kids at the very front of that line, if we aren't being thoughtful about what it means to give them a chance to re-enter, then we're not doing our jobs. But to all of you, we say, the work is just beginning, and we're here to be in the work with you. But thank you, and keep forging ahead.
So I thought that Westmore did a much more eloquent job than I could of just the importance of continuing conversations about how we support our youngest children as far as literacy goes, and why I want to take just a moment to thank our state Read On partners, our local Read On and community partners across Arizona, our dedicated administrators, principals, teachers who are joining us, and just everyone for the work that everyone does every day to help support our youngest kids in becoming better readers. And with that, Sean, I'm going to hand it over to you as our moderator extraordinaire and partner in crime on this great work. And really, again, thank you to you, Sean, because you do such a fantastic job of putting kids first every day and making literacy, your passion for literacy, something that we're all passionate about. So,
thank you. Thanks, Terri. I'm Sean Ross. I am the Deputy Associate Superintendent of Academic Standards at the Arizona Department of Education. I've been with the department about 5.5 years. And before that, for 15 years, I was an English teacher, an instructional coach, basically everything under the sun. I was leadership at the site level, and really loved my transition to the department. And this project in particular has been a real shining beacon of the work that we're able to do and the important work that's happening around the state that we are able to highlight. And I'm so excited that you're with us today. I actually kind of can't contain it. To let you in on a little behind the scenes, my air conditioning went out last night. Middle of the night, got to about 95 degrees in our house. And my wife and I were up with our daughter the whole night, trying to figure out what to do, calling, air conditioning still out. And I am still this happy to be here. This is how great this project is, because, you know, it's like 100,000 degrees outside. So I'm very excited to be here. And we're going to open with a very short presentation that to contextualize this project and to show you the sort of the data around which this project arose. And then I'm going to introduce the amazing panelists, and we're going to start with some questions, and you are going to learn from these powerhouse educators, the amazing strategies they have used, the amazing techniques you've used, the level of concern they bring to their teachers, their kids, their communities every day. So I'm so thankful to be here to share this. So I am going to share my screen. Actually, Terri.
Oops, sorry.
That's okay.
I don't want to do that. Sorry, hold on.
No problem.
Stop me and allow you.
Okay. Oh, it's actually saying I'm not allowed to share. So if you want to share the slides, that's okay, and we can go through that.
All right, we'll do it that way.
I'm blaming this on the air conditioning being out.
All right. There we go, Sean.
Great, thank you. So this project started a couple of years ago, maybe a little less than a couple of years ago. Terri and I were having a discussion. Terri and I, at certain points in my life, have talked more in a week than my wife and I do. And so we were having a great discussion about, you know, the state of literacy across Arizona and across the nation, and, you know, what we could do to sort of, you know, continue contributing to help grow our readers across the state. And we always start with data. And so the opening slide is the National Assessment for Educational Progress, right? It's the nation's report card, which by law, I have to say that way. Whenever I talk about NAEP, it's their trademark. And this is the assessment that's given to students around the nation. It's given in 4th grade, in particular for reading, amongst other grades and subjects. And you can see here the progression of NAEP scores for Arizona and for the nation going back 28 years. And so Arizona has consistently grown in their scores. The nation has had relatively consistent growth with a little bit of a downturn most recently. But one of the things that I'm really proud of is that Arizona has made up some of the gap between the national average and Arizona's average NAEP 4th grade reading scores. So there's really good work happening. In fact, as recently as 2017, that administration of NAEP, Arizona was the 5th fastest growing state in the nation for 4th grade reading scores. So there's a lot of really good work happening around reading in this state, and you can see that in the upward trend in national data. Next slide. So we start at the national level, right? So we want to drill down a little bit to the state level. And this is actually the AZ-M2, the AZ merit data for the state going back over the majority of that exam's existence. And so one of the things I like to point out when we look at statewide literacy data for 3rd grade, now this is 3rd grade ELA, because that's the point we're really focused on, right? We know all the statistics that, you know, students who aren't reading at grade level by 3rd grade, there's a lot of, a big impact on their lives. And so it's a big fulcrum for us. It's where we focus a lot of our energy to make sure that we're growing those lifelong readers. And you look at our data, our kids tend to be at the pole. they tend to either be passing or they tend to be in the minimally proficient range, which is the lowest range, the lowest indicator on our statewide English language arts exam. Now, the good news is, as you'll notice over the course of each of these years, the percentage of students passing has gone up and the percentage of students in that minimally proficient range has gone down. But one of the things that the data tells us is that our students are, the bulk of our students are struggling and are really struggling because they're in that minimally proficient range. And so a big part of our job is not only to help students grow so that they're passing and more importantly, lifelong readers, but also to help them move out of that minimally proficient range. And that doesn't happen overnight, right? That happens over time. And so this is actually a good visual for how we approach this specific project. Terri, next slide, please. So what we did is Terri had her magical folks. She has these great data folks that she employs and do amazing work for her. And they ran the numbers for our statewide reading exam for third grade for ELA, for English Language Arts. And we discovered the schools that have had the largest percentage of growth, the schools that have had the most success over that time, because we really wanted trend data, because we know that that's going to be the most accurate, right? That there can be some variation year to year, especially if you have a small student population. But we wanted to look at it over the course of the life of the exam. And so when we began the project, we had data up through 2018. And these were the schools that jumped out at us. This was the data that jumped out at us. And you're going to see some names on here from people who are on our panel. So yay to you. And we're so excited about this. And so what we did is we took this data, and then next slide, please. We ran another data set where we looked at the schools that have had the most success reducing their number of students who scored in the minimally proficient range. Because we know that it's not just about percent passing, right? It's about growth and it's about positive movement. And so these schools have had really positive movement and really have used impactful strategies with their lowest performing students to help move them towards proficiency. And they may not have reached it yet, but they're on that path. And you can see the scores, you can see the decrease in the number of students who were scoring in the minimally proficient range, which is delightful. Next slide. So taking that data, as Terri said, we just started calling. When we started calling schools, and we understandably had some funny conversations. No one wants to get a call from ADE. And so when I started making the calls, Angel's laughing, she knows. When I started making the calls, there was a lot of, ADE, why are you calling? We're doing well, what's going on? I'm like, no, this is great. This is actually good, hold on. And I would explain the project, and that would open the doors. And so we were very fortunate to have these 4 schools in particular invite us in. And so the first case study that you see here is from Lincoln Elementary in Nogales, which is actually where my parents are from. So this was a particularly meaningful visit for me. And we called Lincoln, that Angel Canto is a representative from there, because they had, as you can see on the slide, they had reduced their percentage of students who scored minimally proficient by 26 points between 2015 and 2019. And they had increased their percent passing for third grade reading from 16% in 2015 to 43% in 2019. And 94% of their students are eligible for free and reduced lunch. And so Nogales, for those of you who aren't familiar with our state, is in the southern part of our state. And so it has some unique challenges that I'm sure Angel will talk about as we get into the panel. And we were so excited about this success. And as we did with each of the schools, we called, once we got past the initial, why are you calling? And we discussed the project, we asked the schools, as Terri said, to have as many representatives as they could of the people who are contributing to this success in pre-K to third grade reading, right? It's not just about third grade, it's that entire continuum. We know learning starts in the womb, right? So it's that whole continuum. And Terri and I were so thankful because we would arrive at the schools and we'd have a room full of teachers and paraprofessionals, librarians, family liaisons, administrators, district personnel. It was really such a rewarding experience. And so we have a case study for Lincoln, and Terri is going to put the link for the case studies into the chat. So that way you can visit these. And they live on the Read On Arizona website, as well as the Arizona Department of Education's Move On When Reading website. Next slide. We also visited Roosevelt School in Yuma. And we have Sofia and Alma, yeah, hand in the air for that, which is a wonderful school. And Sofia, just nod if I'm right. I believe the building is over 100 years old. The building itself is, I believe, over 100 years old. It's one of the oldest schools in the state.
We're almost there, 93.
Yeah, which is amazing. And so it's a fantastic school in Yuma, which easily identified by its really pretty red door. It's got a really nice entrance. And we were so excited to get to visit Roosevelt. They had the highest growth of any district school in the state in their third grade reading scores over the course of AZ Merit, increasing from 9% in 2015, passing to 52% in 2018. 90% of their students are eligible for free and reduced lunch, and they have a 92% Hispanic population. Being a school in Yuma, they also face some unique challenges. And so we were so excited to get out and interview them and learn how they have brought success to their school and helped grow those readers. Next slide. And we actually started our visits. This was our very first visit, was at Wildflower School, which is now Wildflower Accelerated Academy in the Avondale Elementary School District. This school, led by Dr. Araceli and Montoya, we also have Karla, one of their third grade teachers, with us today. They increased their percent passing from 33% to 56%. They decreased the number of economically disadvantaged students who scored in that lowest range by 21 points, and then 60% of their kids are eligible for free and reduced lunch. And this final bullet is actually the one that I think, we kind of shouted from the rooftops. I know they have as well, which is that they went from a school in the school improvement cycle to an A-rated school in 4 years. So there, as you can see, there's a really interesting cross-section of schools. Now, we actually had a fourth school as well, Legacy Traditional Queen Creek. They're a charter school who's had real success. They were not able to attend today, so we'll be focusing on these three, but there is a fourth. We did have a charter representative as well. We wanted to make sure to have a really nice cross-section of the state. And I'm so excited to get to walk you through the project so that when you hear from these amazing educators who are doing transformative work with our children around the state, you have a sense of the numbers behind that, of the data that shows the proof that this work has been successful. Next slide.
Oh, I think.
So, go ahead, Terri.
No, go ahead, Sean.
Oh, I was just going to say, we're actually going to jump into the presentation. So if you do have some questions based on what I've shown here today, please feel free to put them in the chat. And then as we go through the panel, if they're not answered, then we'll get to the
Your sound has gone out, Sean.
Yeah, I apologize. It just
There you
got the little red exclamation mark that yell at me from Zoom. So I apologize, everybody. What I was saying was we had to now move to the panel. If you do have questions based on this opening presentation, please enter them in the chat. And then if we don't answer them in the course of the panel, we'll try to address them towards the end. So if we could exit the PowerPoint.
We can. Sorry. There you go.
So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our panelists today. Again, I couldn't be more excited. Terri and I, along with Sarah Bondi, who's our K-3 early literacy specialist, we were able to drive all around the state to meet them and to be welcomed into their schools, into their communities. Have you ever walked onto a campus of a school and immediately you wished you had gone there because it feels like home and it feels like family? That's what every one of these visits was like. The second I stepped on those campuses, I thought, man, I wish I had had a chance to teach here. I wish I had a chance to have my daughter here, to be a student here, because it's the environments were that welcoming, that enriching. The learning was sort of emanating from the walls. Like you could feel it. It was like a hug. And I just am so excited to have the people who helped build that here today. And so I'm going to begin with Wildflower Accelerated Academy. We have two representatives. So we have Dr. Araceli Montoya.
Good morning.
And who's the principal. And we have Karla Brockman, who is a third grade teacher.
Morning.
Welcome. From Lincoln Elementary in Nogales, we have Angel Canto, who's Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction.
Good morning.
Hi, Angel. From Roosevelt School in Yuma, we have Sofia Ramirez, who's the principal. Hi, Sofia. And we have Alma Solis, who is a third grade teacher. And so we're so excited to have everybody with us today. As I said, we have some questions that we're going to begin with. The questions are going to range from what strategies they used that proved successful to what their thinking is going into the new school year with COVID, which we think will kind of cover the range of what your questions might be as well in the audience. So let's go ahead and begin if everybody's okay. And my first question is, in the overview of the Decoding What Works project in that presentation, I discussed the growth in third grade reading scores that each of you made at your schools. Could you please identify and discuss one or two key practices or strategies that were implemented that most contributed to this growth? And if you don't mind, our friends at Wildflower, Araceli and Carla, if you guys will begin, that would be great.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I know that there's so many things that we're working on as a school site, especially those of us directly in the schools at the sites. Thank you for attending today. So there's a lot of things obviously that go into reading, right? We know that it is like rocket science. It is that difficult and all those different moving parts. But one of the first pieces that we engaged in is a pretty deep study of the science of reading. So clearly understanding the work that goes into learning to read. So that was one of the first components that we did. And when I say we, I mean the teachers, including the paraprofessionals that were working with us, that were going into the classes. They really focused and did some extensive study in the area of reading. In addition to that, another component that we did and we looked at that we realized obviously as we were doing this study is really redefining our literacy block. So that block and all the different pieces and times and those were two pieces that we really closely looked at as far as early literacy goes. Karla, is there something else that you would?
Yeah, I also think that making reading mandatory instead of voluntary was one of the key components, where I think a lot of the students had this idea that, well, I could read if I want to. Well, no, now it's a mandatory. You're going to read and you're going to be involved in all of the stations and all of the novel studies. I think that was one big component.
Yeah.
Sean, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I know when Terri and I visited Wildflower, that was one of the pieces of information that made our jaws hit the floor, was the amount of reading every single student in that school did on campus every day, and then the amount of writing as well. So Karla, you're being humble when you say, you know, it's mandatory that they read. It's mandatory in that it is a significant part of their school day every day. And we were so excited about that, and we were just thrilled to learn, you know, what was happening at Wildflower. Angel, would you mind sharing?
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you very much for inviting me. I would be representing Mr. Paul Carlson, our principal at Lincoln, and his team, and very happy to do so. I think what really turned it around at Lincoln at that time, Dr. Lucina Romero was our principal. Mr. Carlson was key. He was her reading coach at her site, and now he's assumed the principalship. They really focused on staff development. They had some new staff on board, and it was obvious that we needed to go back and develop some type of common language of instruction to get all of us up to speed on those key instructional strategies and how to teach foundational reading skills appropriately. And their whole staff was trained with teaching reading effectively. And that was really important to bringing everybody's level up to developing that common language. And they were also, they continue to be great consumers of data. They're very data driven in all of their decision making. They have regular ongoing data meetings with their sites, including their classified staff, who are a key part of our reading programs and our instruction in our classrooms with our teachers. And so that sharing out that data, studying that data in an ongoing way, utilizing that to not only identify issues with core instruction, but then to target students and for tutoring and for the remediation that happened during the day was important. And they brought the students on board. Our students there know their data. They have their own data binders that they've created. And I'll tell you, if you're there on that campus on days where we're dibbling, and you'll see the students will come out and they will tell you if they're at benchmark what their score was. They are so happy to share, and they know their data. And they've continued to roll that out to bringing the parents on board. They share all of the data with the parents. They've held parent nights and explain the data and how the parents can interpret those reports, and really making it a whole community. You know, they say it takes a village. Well, Lincoln is really embraced, and I think embodies that type of statement. They brought everyone on board, and that has shown in the data, and I think that's been key to their success.
And I can attest to this. When we were at that visit, Angel, they had a parent present. Actually, each of the schools had parents present, which was amazing. And I'm forgetting the gentleman's name.
Alex Lopez.
Yeah, and he had told a little story about how he has two daughters who have gone through Lincoln. And he was like, well, my older daughter, she was a very advanced reader, and you know, she would be at benchmark by, I mean, and he was using educator parlance very comfortably. And then he said, but my second daughter, you know, didn't adapt as well, and so she was about, you know, here and that. But then we identified that in kindergarten, and we practiced these at home, and it was like listening to somebody who had just completed an intensive reading training. And here was this dad, you know, who had shown up at this meeting to talk to ADE, you know, and read on about the school. And the knowledge he had was so reflective of the work you all had done. So it was amazing. I see that Sofia is back with us and that Alma's joining. So Sofia, the question was, if you could identify, and then Alma as well, if you could identify one or two key practices that really helped in the growth of your third grade reading scores over time, what would those be? What would you share with the audience? You're on mute, Sofia.
Sorry. You know what, the teachers providing differentiated based instruction, and also looking at the results and having those conversations along with the data days, CPM meetings with the coaches and the teachers. You know what, just keeping that in mind and making sure that we all understand where we are, where we need to be, setting those goals and the expectations, so that way, you know what, we are all focusing on one thing.
Alma, would you like to add to that?
Yes, well, I would like to mention that Yuma District 1 had implemented personalized learning. So the use of technology provides the students with a variety of options to learn on their own level. Personalized learning promotes differentiation, how Mrs. Ramirez mentioned to you, and students work on the materials to target their specific needs. So personalized learning has 4 learning strategies, that is targeted instruction, collaboration, rigor, and purposeful pacing. So targeted instruction focus on targeting those learning goals that on the specific needs of the students. The rigorous curriculum is very important to have high expectations and help our students to improve that reading levels, that reading skills. So I will say differentiation in technology makes the students, help the students to improve their reading skills.
Thank you, Alma, and thank you, Sophia. And I remember in my notes, I was sort of the dedicated note taker for the interviews. Thank you, Mom, for making me take typing in high school. I remember from my notes at our visit to Roosevelt that in particular, many of the teachers, and this rings in my ear today, they talked about personalized learning, and they talked about the system that you were using in Roosevelt and in, I think, district-wide in Yuma L for personalized learning. But the mantra, the thing they kept saying was, the technology does not replace the teacher. The technology is there to assist the teacher, but the teacher is still the most important person, most important entity in the room for student instruction and for student learning. And I loved that because your teachers were so passionate about, they really saw the benefit of this personalized learning, and they saw how it had added to their work and to their student success, but they also saw that it would not work in isolation, right? That it only worked because they were there along with it. And that's rang very true to me. So we will go ahead and move on to our next question. You guys, this has been great already. And actually, just to quickly summarize, I want to say a few. So the keywords we heard from this first section, right, were from Wildflower, time devoted to reading, right? Time made in the schedule at the leadership level so that there is dedicated, focused reading instruction all the way through. And that's a critical piece, right? The preservation of that reading block, and then having reading and writing factor in as well. From Angel, we heard about data, and more data, and really using data to zero in on student need and on need for staff for professional development as well. And then from Sofia and from Alma, we heard about personalized learning, and we heard about differentiated instruction. And so what I love about this is none of this is new. We all know this works, right? But it's about the careful, methodical, efficient application of these ideas, which all of these educators have done, that proves successful. So in our second question, what were one or two key obstacles to success that your school faced, and how were you able to overcome or change them so that young readers could thrive? And Angel, if you don't mind, would you start us off on this?
Not at all. For us, I think we talked about the professional development and bringing all of us up to that level that we needed to be at to provide appropriate instruction for children. But part of that was related to, we had experienced some turnover in staff, and in fact had a number of emergency certified teachers there at the site. And being here, I think we all know there's a teacher shortage in Arizona, and so we had to find a way to address that, to not only complement the professional development that was happening, but we grew our own. And what Mr. Carlson was a key part of that with Dr. Romero at that time. They actually helped those staff members become fully certified, tutored them in addition to professional development that was happening for all staff, so that they were able to complete their coursework, they were able to pass their assessments. And really, now we have people there that are very dedicated. One of the ladies on our successful third grade team was a kinder aide when this all began, and now she's one of our high-flying third grade teachers with the help and the support that was provided there. I think that was really key to helping the school move forward, and everyone was so committed to helping everyone else. And you don't always see that in schools, but they really are a family. Dr. Romero and Mr. Carlson always talk about that they are a family at Lincoln, and that is very much true. Everyone lifts everyone else up on that site, and if there's a teacher that needs assistance, there is no shortage of somebody who is there to help provide support. And our more veteran teachers do the heavy lifting. They take those students as the other teachers were gaining that experience at that time, and they were with our classes, with our ELLs, etc., providing instruction. So I think that family, that team, and the work we did to grow our own, in addition to the professional development, really helped us at that site.
That's amazing, thank you. And I just want to, I didn't get to say this last time, but Paul, the principal in particular, the teachers kept saying about him, he's a literacy leader, he's a literacy leader. And actually I heard that at each of the campuses, and I saw that in each of the leaders. And I think that's such a crucial component. So I'm thankful that you came back to him in particular. Sofia and Alma, do you want to address next? So one or two key obstacles that you overcame and or changed in the road to this success?
Yes, basically we had, we were using the old adopted textbooks for reading, and the district was actually looking to see what they could do to be able to change that. So now we have the new ELA benchmark advance. So you know what, we have a very rigorous curriculum and pacing charts, And we're able to use that now. But before, the teachers had to be very creative, and you know what, depending on each other and having those conversations and helping each other with lessons and getting together and just you know what, just being able to find resources for each other was a key. The other thing is, you know, it was difficult for us to be able to really count on some people, as we only had them as part-time and they had to go to another school. So teachers had to be very innovative people. So, you know, what we were counting on all the staff, the special area teachers, the parent liaisons, the librarians, the reading interventionist, you know, even our counselor. You know, we were really taking, you know, advantage of the resources that we had within our schools.
All right. Well, I think there are several obstacles that teachers and the students have to overcome in order for the student to succeed in reading. So one of the more important that I think is the poverty level. Our school is located in a poverty area in Yuma, Arizona. Their socioeconomic level put the students in disadvantage with the students from other neighborhoods. To overcome these obstacles, I always think that it's not the student's fault. It is not the community fault. So, and then I have always trying to put more effort to help those students to go out of this poverty level, to finish with that. And I believe that education is the most important for them. Um, last February, I attend a training that is agree with my philosophy as helping the students and my education philosophy and my teaching philosophy. So, and I think building and caring relationship and advocating for students is very important. Creating that relation with your students is going to help you so much. Having high expectations and providing students with the support they need, it's gonna help. They are gonna love the school. They are gonna want it to come. They are gonna understand why it's important to learn. And accepting professional accountability for learning, so it is important. I have to understand um, what what I'm doing to help them. So I have to be responsible for the learning. It's not just blame on the student or blame on their backgrounds. Is my responsibility. Thank you.
Beautifully said. There, I know all of us were shaking our heads, and I'm sure the audience was as well. Very, very important point. Very important point. Araceli and Carla, do you want to go next? A couple obstacles that you all had to overcome?
I'll let Karla go first, since she deals with, you know, this hands-on. She's at the front of that. So I'll let Karla answer that.
So I think one of the main obstacles was the fact that it wasn't that they couldn't read, it was the lack of stamina and the lack of exposure to diverse reading genres. They were more involved in wanting to just read a couple of sentences compared to a whole page or 2 paragraphs. And so that was something that I did work with them a lot on, was just that building that stamina through repetition, through practice, and just constant pushing them just to gain that stamina that they were lacking, because they were reading. It was just not enough that they were reading.
In addition to that, so yes, that was a struggle, especially for Karla, because she was at that 3rd grade. And I think maybe Karla, if you can speak to the writing as well, because that's a big component of, so we talk a lot about, you know, reading and how important that is, but I know Karla does a lot of work around, and she's gotten extensive training with writing too. So can you speak to that, Karla, as well?
Yeah, so I did go to a workshop in New York for the Lucy Hawkins writing workshop. And so once we did that, we were able to implement and correlate both the reading with the writing. And so that started to show a lot of improvement in both areas. And again, it was on a daily basis. There was no excuses of why not to write and why not to read. So I think the students started realizing that I'm gonna have to do this and I'm gonna have to do this every day. And so once we got going with a gradual increase of text complexity, I think the kids started enjoying their reading and their writing, where they would ask, can we write some more? Can we read some more? So that was such a pleasant surprise from the kids, was that they were starting to enjoy reading and writing rather than it being almost like a punishment. So it was becoming an enjoyment for them. And so that involved a lot of the parents as well. That was an obstacle as well, was that the parent involvement wasn't always there. But then once they started noticing that homework was becoming a little more difficult and a little longer, then the parents started coming around and being more involved with our curriculum.
Thank you.
Araceli, did you want to add anything?
No, I think Karla did a beautiful job of explaining some of the obstacles that you were having.
And just know, I came from a 7th grade classroom.
Yes.
I was a middle school teacher, so getting into the 3rd grade class, I was like, oh, wait, no. So I started sort of treating them like 7th graders, where by the end, they were reading a 7th grade novel. And even though I would read it to them, they were still following along. So I think that's something that has pushed them a little longer, was the fact that they were sort of treated like middle school students.
Yeah, I always tease Karla about that. It always feels like a middle school model when you walk in there. But I was thinking about what Alma said earlier. So she talked a lot about like the high expectations, like children. I mean, I know that we've all read the research, but they really can do so much more than like what we think they could do.
Yes.
So I was kind of nodding when Alma and Sofia were talking about the expectation piece is so incredibly important and so powerful.
And this is, thank you all. This is such a this question and these responses in particular. And I want to highlight that what we heard, the obstacles we heard were teacher shortage, poverty, and students not coming in ready at grade level. Well, for those of you in the audience, those aren't new for you, right? Like these are the things that people have brought to us for years, for decades, saying, here's why it's not working. If these were fixed, it would work. And these amazing educators are saying, yeah, no, we're not taking that. That argument's gone. We're making it work. And I'm so proud to have them with us today in particular at this moment, because I do think for many that those 3 reasons in particular are often cited as why maybe a school isn't as successful, or a classroom, or whatever, but it's proof that you can overcome that. And I love that Angel talked about growing your own, particularly in Nogales. That is a tight-knit community. When I went down for that visit, my mother, I told her I was going. She goes, oh, mijo, go to Zula's. And I go, Mom, what is Zula? She goes, oh, it's the restaurant I ate at when I was a kid. And I go, Mom, that was like 100 years ago. There's no way that place is still there, which she smacked me, of course. But then I went down there and I joked to Angel and the teachers, like, oh, my mom's place is still here. And they go, yeah, Zula's is right there. Look. Not only had to go to Zula's, I did have it, and I had to really apologize to my mother, which is a good lesson for me. But it's in particular, that community is so tight-knit, and the growing your own is such an elegant solution to the teacher shortage. And then Alma, again, my heart is pouring over. I grew up very poor, and so the idea that there was a tyranny of low expectations, right, that we sometimes put on our students in poverty, and refusing to do that, and holding the line, and understanding that it's about high expectations, it's about relationships, and it's about if that kid won't believe in herself, you believe in her for her, and eventually she'll get there. And then the idea of students not coming in at grade level, and it's the responsibility of the teacher to identify where they're struggling and to meet that need, to talk about reading stamina, to talk about a specific targeted skill that they need to learn and to grow. And I think that's you've provided so much for us and for the audience in this question. Araceli, did you want to say something? I'm sorry, it looked like, okay. Sorry about that. So let's go to the next question. And this one's actually going to be sort of targeted at each of you because of your different roles. And so I'll say the question, then I'll kind of circle back. We'll start with Angel, actually. We're going to start with you. So since we have educators here from all different sort of parts of a school structure or a district structure, what are key practices and behavior needed from your specific roles? So district personnel for Angel, principals and leaders for Araceli and Sofia, and then teachers for Karla and Alma to best support growth in reading. So what from your specific role is most needed to support reading and growth? So Angel, if you don't mind starting us off.
Not at all. I can think of a couple different things. I think to start off with, you kind of have to walk the talk and be a consumer of data and ensure that the data is accessible to all of the stakeholders. So I think that one's really important and helped us move at Lincoln. I also need to be a support and a resource to our schools. They know often what they need. My job is to make sure that happens, to make sure that they have the early release calendar that meets their needs for professional development, to make sure that they have the resources, the materials that they need to meet the needs of their students. We are also very collaborative. Communication is really important to be sure that I'm talking with the teachers, I'm in contact with the principals, that we are very close knit here. And so that access, we communicate frequently. We have monthly meetings with our elementary principals to make sure that we're exchanging ideas and looking at the data together between schools to share ideas and support each other. Our reading staff work together collaboratively. They're in communication. They meet as well frequently throughout the year to share best practices, examine the data together, find out if this school was higher in one place, what did you do to get there? And then even our teachers collaborate on a quarterly basis. So I think really that support, being that support and that resource and the communication are key, and that's what we need to do to provide and meet the needs of our sites so that they can meet the needs of their students and parents.
Thank you. Sofia and Araceli, so as site leaders, as school leaders, what is the most important role that you play, or the most important behavior or practice to promote learning and growth in reading? And Sofia, if you want to start, and then we can go to Ellie.
Sure. We need to make sure that teachers have the knowledge of current literacy best practices and access to tools and resources needed to incorporate them. We also need to ensure high quality instruction support by strong literacy frameworks. This could be the opportunities for peer coaching, classroom visits, video reviews, and also, what is very important to be able to be there to support, to encourage, and also to celebrate. It doesn't really have to be huge improvements or big steps, but letting everybody know that you appreciate what they're doing and celebrating every little tiny step. So that way, they know that we're all in this together as a team.
Araceli?
Thank you, Sofia. I think one of the really interesting pieces about, us as principals or site leaders is that most of us don't come from the primary ranks. Typically, the majority of us come from, intermediate classrooms or even middle school. So a lot of us don't have an incredible amount of expertise in early literacy. So that's one of the things to consider. One of the other pieces is most of us principals, there's a lot of pressure, for performance, and we think about the high stakes, right? And so there's a lot of concerted effort and a lot of energy and time that goes into 3rd through 8th grade. That would be the case for us. So it's sometimes difficult to think about, I need to also pivot and think about primary as well. So that balancing of like, where do I, balance my time and energy is really important. But if we always talked about, fixing or making sure that as we have the kids come up, it's easier. And yes, it takes us more time, but if we can, kind of capture them early, it's easier for us than if we wait. So as a school site leader, my responsibility is to ensure that I have a deep understanding of early literacy. that I take the time to educate myself around early literacy, that I have a vision for what literacy should look like on my campus, and that I'm actually able to speak to that vision. And that way I can have, the teachers alongside me, and so we can all have a clear understanding of where we're going. So I really believe that as principals or site leaders, it's our responsibility to ensure that we are familiar with the research and helping alongside the teachers in the implementation of that research.
All right, thank you both. And so let's hear from teachers. So we'll begin with Karla and then Alma. So some key practices or behaviors or strategies for teachers for student success.
Again, I think it just comes from the top. With Araceli, it's great if we need anything related to reading, she is on top of it. If we need more book titles, she is on top of it as well. And that goes across all of our leadership team. Our librarian, if we were on a certain topic, I would ask her to pull books that were related to that. And the next time we went into a library, they were ready to go for us. And so I think under Angel's link, I think she said that it was all hands on deck. And that's exactly what it is. It just doesn't happen in my class. It has to be across the school. Reading has to be everywhere these kids go. And they have to be exposed to everything. So that was something that I really love being at the school, because everyone is so supportive of whatever it is that you're doing. And so if I feel supported, then our students will feel supported as well. And it just trickles down from there. And I think I'm gonna throw in that word of transparency. We need to be transparent with what the kids are doing, even for our parents. They need to know if their student is struggling. They need to know exactly what is it that they need and how they're able to help. It has to be all of us. It has to be a community of learning, not just, again, like I said, in the classroom.
Thank you. And yeah, very true. Alma?
Well, I believe everyone has a responsibility in this reading improvement. So administration, coaches, district support is essential for the student success. As we mentioned in the previous interview at Roosevelt School when you came, we mentioned to you that we have created a culture of mutual respect and trust to each other. So that culture is very important for us to work together, to have that teamwork. We support each other, and because we are in a small school, we know all the students. We work together with the previous school year teacher. We create the class list for the next year. We use data and important information about each student. So knowing the students' levels help us to determine the learning gaps that we have to target on each student. So data from the previous year is compared with the new data from different sources, like a Galileo testing, benchmark this time. So that help us to create the groups for interventions. And we set also the small groups for instruction. So I think our culture for mutual respect, data, and intervention is some of the key for the growth in reading. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think, the through line for each of you was really that communication and support piece, right? The all hands on deck, that everyone has to be pointed the same direction, working towards the same goal in their own unique spaces, but also working together and communicating together, as Angel said, from district to leader, from leader to teacher, from teacher to teacher, teacher to parent. It is a circle, and it works best when it is all hands on deck. So thank you. That very much came through. In your answers, you actually hinted at the next question, which is really wonderful.
Sean?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm just watching some questions in the chat that
Okay.
might mean you go a little out of order in your questions, but one we have from Jennifer Pollock is, during this time of coronavirus, how do you expect you will have to alter these successful strategies to continue to touch all students? Which is an awesome question. Thank you, Jennifer.
So we actually, just so the audience knows, we did have our COVID questions coming, but yes, they're very important, and this is probably a good place to have this one. So how do you expect to alter some of those practices, or what practices do you maybe plan on implementing? Angel, do you mind if we start with you?
No, not at all. Yes, that's kind of where we're living right now. And so it's trying to reimagine learning to continue to make our students successful and enable them to reach their academic goals. We're really looking at it. We're so used to having the opportunity for that face-to-face instruction, particularly as some of the ladies were speaking about the primary grades, where that's so critical. And as we pivot to more of an online platform, I think we were very careful in the programs that we picked. We've had some great partners. We were used to doing blended learning, so this won't be, having more online instruction won't be as much of a switch for us, because that was a large part of what we were doing as for our instruction. I think that we're glad that we've had the parents as partners, because now what we'll need is them more than ever. That partnership will be more critical. We are incorporating kits to supplement the online learning, particularly at our kinder and first grade levels, while we're at this extended online period, so that parents will have additional resources. They don't have to find them, look for them, get them. Our educators have decided what are some key things to start off with in those kits. We'll be providing those to each one of our families, as well as it's been a challenge to move to one-on-one. We had a lot of technology, but we work as a team across our district, and our tech director has been awesome in making sure, working with our grants director, that we've procured hundreds of devices over this summer, as well as some Wi-Fi. Internet is a huge challenge in this community, so we needed to get not only the technology in the hands if we're working from home for any period of time, whether it's in a completely online or a hybrid model. We needed to have Wi-Fi devices available to support those families who may not have internet. We are 96% free and reduced lunch at Lincoln, so poverty is high here, and internet can be kind of spotty, frankly. So we have those devices we needed to work to get for our families. The curriculum that we have to be able to shift to those online platforms like Imagine Learning will certainly be helpful for us. And we partnered with ASU PD this past year, initially thinking that that was going to be to supplement some things that we were doing at our high school curriculum. But boy, that partnership, we've leveraged it, and we have expanded that and had a large number of people, K-12, but particularly at the primary grades, participate in free PD that was offered. It was a week-long boot camp to show them best practices, to learn how to use the Google platform that we have in place, which is going to be key, because in addition to having that online platform, to be able to have that face-to-face connection with our parents and our students is going to be critical. And we believe we've done a lot of heavy lifting there this summer. The teachers were awesome in joining that PD and taking a week of their summer to participate and to learn more about that platform and how to utilize it. We've also had a staff member, the teacher that became fully certified, and in fact we have at 3 o'clock this afternoon, because we'll be looking at how we can build upon the PD that they participated in this summer. And we know that we'll have to continue to do live and video learning for our parents, so that they know how to access the things at home to support their students. So they can support them as they move to more of a teaching role in some regards with their student. So I think that we've spent a lot of time working on the technology, building our capacity to be better, and understanding what the needs are when you shift to online learning, and just a tremendous amount of planning.
Thank you. They're very comprehensive. And Angel, one of the things in particular I'm so glad you mentioned is the need for parent training, is the need that just because the technology is going home doesn't mean that family is equipped to use it in the way that it best needs to be used for that student's learning. And that's a piece that we're learning, really needs a lot of attention. That's excellent. Sofia or Araceli, do you want to add anything about preparation for next year?
Yes, I'm going to say that we were in a way lucky. When we closed our school in March, we were able to have iPads for all of the students. And so when that happened, we invited the parents to come over, and we were training them on how to use the iPad and how to log in. I mean, it was challenging, it was different, but with the teachers' help and the paraprofessionals and the parent liaison and everybody working together, we were all calling parents, having them log in, and through the phone we were able to kind of train them. Once they were able to log in, and I also have to thank our coaches and our district office for providing some PDs for the staff on Google Classrooms. And so they were able to actually, implement what they were taught into the homes. And so just having that conversation with the parents, letting them know, what, it's okay, what, we're learning together, this is how you do it. And, before we knew it, there were a lot of parents that were really embracing the technology. The other thing that really helped us out is because, what, school was out, but because we had the 21st Century program, so we were still able to provide those services for the students. And then for summer school, what, we continue having those classrooms and those classes for the students, so they were able to practice even more, using technology. So that really helped us, and it helped the teachers. And I could see the difference between the collaboration between home and school.
Excellent, thank you. Araceli?
So I think that, moving forward, some of the things that we need to consider are if we're doing synchronous instruction, especially if we think about our primary students, those components that are necessary in a literacy block will still continue to be necessary. So when we think about, phonemic awareness and phonics and all those different components, they still need to be part of the lessons that are going to be delivered to students, either synchronous or asynchronous, however, someone is doing that. But I think that really taking that into consideration and making sure that teachers understand that those components are going to be incredibly necessary. So that's just one of the pieces that I think is incredibly important. One more thing, and I'm just putting in a plug in, and I don't get paid by Corwin, but this book is, it's probably the best book that I've seen yet, that gives some really practical ideas for what teachers can put in place. It is through Corwin, and I think it's on back order. So I wouldn't go through Amazon, go through Corwin. But it's a really good, very practical book. So.
Thank you so much. So it's what we've heard then is so important is the, helping bridge the digital divide with technology and with broadband, right? That being equally as important, but that alone is not enough, that there needs to be professional development provided for teachers so that they're best using the technology. And then that professional development provided for parents so that they can use the technology at home. And then, as Sofia said, that direct support to parents, and one of the things we've talked a lot about at ADE is the phone, that when, all else fails, you can usually get through on the phone. And so I loved hearing Sofia say, we stayed on the phone with them. We helped them, get logged in. We helped them, learn that technology, and, to have that support. And then, as Araceli said, and Angel said as well, really zeroing in on key content, right? On key standards, that in a time of distance learning, in a time of virtual learning, there really isn't going to be room to teach everything. So you do have to know, your staff has to know, what are those critical standards? What are those critical skills? And then I loved hearing Araceli talk about phonological awareness and phonemic awareness. You can tell she's a literacy leader, because that is the place where you start for literacy development, and making sure that the teachers remember that just because that the environment has shifted doesn't mean that priority has shifted, and finding a way to do it. That was really excellent. Since we are sort of in a COVID discussion place, I'm going to veer a little bit to some of our questions. And you talked about parent engagement. Sofia, in particular, you talked about parent engagement. Araceli or Angel, do you want to add anything about how to engage parents at this point, or maybe the importance of that piece? Araceli, we'll start with you.
Okay. I think Karla kind of spoke to that. We did have very formalized meetings with parents when students were not hitting those benchmarks. So that was part of our process, in that we called parents in and had very honest conversations with them. I think one of the things that's incredibly powerful, especially once you get maybe beyond kindergarten, is when we show a parent, this is the book that your child is reading fluently, and this is the book that they need to be reading. This is where they should be. And when they see that, the difference, because our kids are reading, right? And so they're like, well, but he's reading. Yes, he is reading, which is great, but this is what he's reading, and this is what he needs to be reading. And when you show them that, it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, so having those concrete examples for them to really understand, yeah, that visual is so important. Angel, what about parent engagement, especially in time of COVID?
Yeah, I think that I completely agree with what Araceli said. Very important. The good things we were doing, we have to just find different ways of continuing to do them. So there's the challenge to be a little bit more creative. I think that we still need to not only provide them the data, but exactly like Araceli said, give them those concrete. So we'll continue to provide reports to them. We may need them to be partners actually with us in assessment of students. And I know Sean and I have talked about this, is we have more students learning, and we have a parent survey out right now where we're getting their feedback about what model they prefer when we can resume perhaps some in-person instruction. Is we're anticipating and seeing with conversations we've already had with parents that they may prefer to stay home. So we may need to do some training with them just to assess, help us with assessment. Fortunately, some of our assessments are online, and our students are accustomed to that. So that won't be much of a shift or a trick. The difference will be with perhaps some of our dibbling or other assessments where we're used to our reading staff and our reading team, our assessment team going in and doing those with our students. We'll be shifting to not only make sure that our parents understand those reports, but now I may need their assistance and their support and an opportunity to provide some training so that they can actually carry out some of those assessments for us when they're at home with their students. And so using social media to communicate has been great. Being able to leverage Google Meet, or if necessary, and that's not comfortable for a parent, heck, well, we can use WhatsApp in certain cases, and we already have been this summer. But we'll need to work with our parents more closely than ever, because I really see that there'll be a need for them to assist us with some of those pieces that may be difficult to carry out long distance with our students at home.
Sean, couple questions. Just I want to make sure that I'm not sure if you saw, but Rand Miller asked, what assessments do you use besides Dibbles to identify student needs? And thought this might be a chance for some to share other things. And then we have one about what nonprofit partners are supporting your literacy goals. So how are the community partners playing a role?
So let's go ahead and start with assessment, since Angel just spoke about it. So we know that Lincoln in particular uses Dibbles as their universal literacy screener. And then Angel, as well as your benchmark assessment?
We also utilize Galileo.
Okay.
Assessments.
And for those of you who may be unfamiliar, Dibbles is much more an assessment of the foundational reading skills, those underpinnings that are necessary for reading, where Galileo tends to be more standards focused, so where that student is at a specific grade level. Sofia and Alma, what are some assessments that you are using in Yuma?
Do you want to go first? I can go. Okay. Well, yes, we use, as Angel mentioned, we use Galileo too. So that's our main, in AZ Mary too, right? But Galileo is our main data. This year, this past year, we start using Benchmark Advance that we use too for data. And then it's Dibbles that I think now is Acadians. And then we use all those various assessments to find the level of the students. It's Galileo, Benchmark, Acadians, and I think it is, and And 95%, yes, that's the intervention that we use. We use that one too. And also, again, because we have different programs with our personalized learning, we have different assessments there too.
And I would, so this is great. Thank you, Alma. Alma actually kind of just described the assessment cycle that a student goes through, right? When they first come in kindergarten through third grade, within the first 3 weeks of school, usually they're screened using a screener that tells you where they are in their development of their essential reading skills, of those core elements of early literacy. And then the 95% group in this particular case would be the diagnostics that help you drill down to the specific level of need for that student. The screener will give you a general red flag. Hey, they're struggling maybe here in this big area. The diagnostic will tell you exactly where they're struggling so that you can target your intervention. And then programs like Galileo will help you sort of monitor their progress, as well as the 95% group products. And then also see where they are in relation to the standards as a precursor to AZ Merit. So thank you, Alma. That's an excellent picture of the assessment cycle we see in schools, especially in K-3. Araceli?
We also use foundations for as an assessment. So we gather those weekly, and that is an additional component. Our students encoding, what they understand. Are they able to write it? So we also have that writing component. Karla, can you speak to more broader, like the work that's been done around writing and how we assess that, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so no, for the writing aspect of it, we do use a lot of anecdotal notes. I know it's not benchmark, but we still use that for their placements as well. And as far as foundations, it's a K-3 program, and so it's basically formed around phonics. And so every week they do have an assessment just to measure their phonics and their decoding.
And Foundations is a supplemental program that's used in conjunction with the core reading program, and is phonics based, and really does help reemphasize those core elements of early literacy and early reading that are so important. I love to hear that it's in use K-3. Sometimes schools believe that those foundational skills end at second grade, but they certainly do not. They continue actually quite a ways, and in particular, even in the English language arts standards, they continue all the way through fifth grade, which is, reflective of current research.
Yeah, and we do see a correlation of increased academic skills once we're using the foundations with their leveled reading books and stations. They're advancing so much better than I don't think if we would have been using foundations.
So there was a second question, and thank you all, these answers are phenomenal. There was a second question about leveraging community partners or leveraging partnerships. And Angel, you had discussed ASU in particular as one of the community partners. If there's another that you would like to highlight, that's great. Or if those of you could speak to any community partnerships that you're leveraging at the moment that are particularly successful. Angel, do you want, Araceli, do you want to start?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So we have been working with Read On Arizona. They've been incredibly supportive. There's been a lot of different projects that they've worked with us on. So last year, all the years blend. So they purchased books for the teachers for like their own personal libraries. They have also been with us in partnership around chronic absenteeism. So that has been something that we've been working with them on. There's been kind of a lot of work, and that probably changed this next year, but that was, a work that we have done with Read On Arizona. So they have been a great partner with us around that. Read On Arizona and Read On Avondale. I should make sure it's Read On Avondale.
Thank you. Angel, and then we'll go to Sofia.
Okay, obviously most recently ASUPD has been huge for us and supporting us as we move forward, providing some much needed information about how to teach online and best practices there. But historically, we've also received a tremendous amount of support from the Nogales Women's Club. They provide books directly to our students and our families with their fundraising to help build those home libraries as well, because that's critical, as does our county school superintendent's office. They also provide funding and materials to get extra books. We also have another civic group that provides dictionaries to our students if they have one of those in the home, and that's been huge. And last but not least, Expect Arizona, give them a shout out as well. They've provided parent materials for us related to standards, and as well that we've been able to distribute and provide those to our parents, which is a great savings to us and very helpful for our parents. And those are in English and Spanish. So we'll take help from whomever we're able to partner with, and we're always looking to expand. And their efforts are much appreciated and benefit our families and students.
Sofia, are there any community partnerships that you would want to highlight?
Yes, we have First Things First. They actually come over and they help us plan lessons for parents and how to teach their children with early literacy. We also have we have 2 Rotary clubs that are helping us with anything that we need, from books up to, dictionaries and anything else that we possibly need. And also Campesinos Sin Fronteras, they are also coming and they are holding classes for the parents.
That's wonderful. So there's a nice cross-section of community partnerships, of partnerships with higher education that are there, and a lot of community partners like Read On Arizona who are very willing and able to provide really targeted supports to schools, because we're not alone in this work. It's all hands on deck.
And just to add to that, sorry,
no, go ahead.
With my 3rd grade class, we're also working with the Coyotes through a reading program. So what we do is they send the kids booklets, and they do need to read every day, every month for a certain amount of minutes, and they're getting prizes through the Coyotes. And at the end, they get tickets to a game. And then we're also with the Peoria Complex through the baseball team. They're also doing a reading program for our students. Sorry, Araceli.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. That's great. And you were smart to pick the Coyotes. They're the only Arizona sports team that's doing well right now. So that's fantastic. Yeah, Suns charities, Cardinals charities, are quite a few available. That's amazing. So yeah.
Hey, sorry, was great discussion. One more question in the chat that sort of actually I think connects to early childhood and some of the work of community partners. What percentage of the kinder children go to preschool is a question. And do you have preschool on your campus, and or what is your relationship with Head Starts and preschools and families, children in your community?
Okay, so relationship with preschools, and if there's one on campus, and then particularly connections with Head Start or First Things First. Sofia, do you want to begin?
Well, I'm glad that you had that question, because I have been asking for a preschool at my site. I don't have one right now. I only have kinder. But I know that my boss is listening to me, so that's so maybe that's a start. And First Things First director is online as well, so another ear to pick.
Dwayne just said he is listening. He's a good man.
And just so you know, they're working for you, Sofia. Rudy is the one that asked that question.
Woohoo! Awesome.
Angel, do you mind going next about preschools in relationships with Lincoln, but also Nogales?
Absolutely. So to start off with, the percentages actually rather low. It'd be under 25% for sure. We actually work with our English language acquisition department, and they've helped us collect some of this data in the past when we're having our students, our incoming kinders at registration. We do have a preschool actually at Lincoln, but it is for special needs students. And as part of that, we do partner with our Head Starts, and we do some additional pre-K activities in the springtime so that our Head Starts can bring their students over to our elementary schools, become acquainted with the campuses, the students, etc. So that had been something we'd done in the past. First thing first is actually we started off in a neighboring town in our county, and now they have opened up, and they've been now for a few years on our A.J. Mitchell Elementary School's campus, which is located near Lincoln. And so we've been doing more data analysis with them as parents complete the sessions there. And we certainly encourage that and support them by sharing out their calendars with our parents, so that parents know when sessions are available and enrollment periods are, so that they can get their families connected to First Things First and take advantage of the resources and the trainings through them. So that would probably kind of summarize it briefly where we're at with preschool. Thank you.
Araceli?
So we have a very small percentage of our students that actually attend preschool. We house the developmental preschool for the school district. And we also have a community preschool. It's a paid preschool that's on our campus as well. Some of the students come to us, but then it's throughout the district. So, or there's some other, they're from outside the district as well. So not all of the students come to us. So we do have a very small percentage of students that actually attend preschool.
Thank you. And I know our time is sort of winding down a bit. And so there's a final question, and if we have time, we'll maybe sneak another one in, but there's sort of a capstone question that I want to make sure we get to, because this project and this session, they're absolutely they're celebrations of the amazing work that all of you are doing, and every person on your campus is doing, every person in your community. The question we didn't get to, but I want to just highlight, is how you are all using your librarians, your family liaisons, your bus drivers, your paras, everybody. That all hands on deck thing really came through in our visits, in how every person on your campus feels responsible for reading, which is beautiful. So what I'd like to end with for each of you is basically about pride, really, about what you're most proud of. So if you could talk about, please share a story or just an example of how your school success has positively impacted your students or parents or teachers or community. Just what is something you're very proud of that this work has lent itself to or has resulted in? And let's start with our teachers. So Karla, do you mind beginning?
I think the something that I'm so proud of is the fact that the first year that I was there, which I'm starting my 4th year there, like I said, I started having them read from the 7th grade novel studies. And so one of the novels that we read was A Long Walk to Water, which is something that I used in Tucson with my 7th graders. And till this day, the kids that I had then still talk about that book. And so it was a very difficult book, but it was something that they were able to relate to in some form or another. And so they still come up to me and tell me, remember when we read A Long Walk to Water? And so I think those are like little moments that are very inspiring for the other kids.
It's fantastic. Alma? You're on mute, Alma.
I'm sorry. And I said I love technology, right? Okay, well, I think there are several stories that we can mention. We have so many good stories here at Roosevelt, but the most important thing, I think, at the end of the school year is to see those happy students at the end. They get more mature, and their success in reading makes them to create self-confidence, and we celebrate them. Every student grow on their own level. So not all of them get to the grade level, but if they improve, that is a reason to celebrate.
Completely agree with you. Yeah, and it's even like the little growth that they do make. We do tend to make a big deal of it so that they see that, oh, wow, I was able to do this. And now I can move on from there. You're exactly right, Alma.
Thank you. And then even though that they don't reach their reading level, they're close to reach, to get to the successful level. Maybe next year, maybe in a couple years, but they are on the way. So we have to believe in our students. We have to have that passion and continue. Never give up with your students. They are gonna learn. They are gonna improve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sofia?
Well, I'm going to start with every time that I have my first staff meeting at the beginning of the year and then towards the end of the year, I read them this story about how we tend to blame it on somebody else. You know what? We start with the college blaming the high schools blaming the junior highs blaming elementary, and then elementary we tend to blame moms, and then moms tend to blame dads, and so we move on the ladder. And I usually tell the teachers, I say, you know what, we need to work together. That is the reason why each and every one of us hold a little tiny piece for our students' success. And we start from kinder because they basically build that foundation that the students need. And then we move on and we add steps to it, and we add those skills, the necessary skills for students to be fluent readers. And so, you know what, we just don't depend on certain grade levels, but we depend on each other, and everybody has, you know, that little responsibility or that piece that they need to be able to address when they have those students in their own classrooms. So I am going to say that I am very, very proud of my entire staff. You know what, when we did the remote learning, you know what, I had this conversation with the teachers, the coaches came over, they trained the teachers, we kind of trained each other. And then, you know what, we had the students actually using their iPads from home. During that time, you know what, we, like I said, we were teaching ourselves, we were teaching the students and we were teaching the parents. But then the paraprofessionals, the librarians, the counselors, everybody started, you know what, adding their little piece. So they were, you know, logging in to those classrooms, and the librarian was reading books and leaving, you know, questions for the students to answer, you know, the following day when she came back to read to them the following story. You know, the counselors they were reading stories, thinking of the social emotional aspect of our students because they were at home, and we don't know exactly what they were, you know, experiencing or facing at that time. So she was logging in and reading those stories and connecting with those students. My paraprofessionals, they were doing small group instruction with the reading interventionist. So, you know what, we were all connecting, we were all logging in and seeing what the students were doing. My special area teachers, my art, music, and PE, they were actually conducting music classes and art classes and, you know, PE classes that I really enjoy logging in because I was able to see the students doing exercises, and I would, you know what, I would actually be there with them and do the same thing that they were doing. So, you know, I kept that connection with the students and the classes, and that gave me that motivation to kind of continue and again praising my staff for doing what they were doing.
Thank you so much. And we are coming to the end of our time, but Araceli and Angel, I want to give you a chance, just if you want to identify something quickly that, you know, which you're especially proud. Araceli, do you want to go first?
I'm just incredibly blessed. Wildflower has received a lot of recognition for our work that we've done. And so our enrollment has gone up significantly as a result. So we've taken a lot of students from around the Southwest Valley.
Thank you. Angel?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing is we have a lot of Lincoln Lion pride. And so this really bolstered that. I think it was very motivating and frankly validating for all the hard work that everyone, the parents, the staff, the principal put in to make these changes and to help our students learn. So it was definitely a school celebration where we, at the district superintendent Potter and I, celebrated with the staff. We recognized them. They came to a board meeting. We televised those where our board celebrated them, and they were also honored in the newspaper. Our whole community, when one of us is successful, it raises the tide for everybody. Everyone celebrates here in Nogales, and there was no exception with this in Lincoln. And we also, Lincoln has seen, like Araceli said, a bump in enrollment as a result, because people are really recognizing the work that they do, and our teachers and staff have taken on other leadership roles. Our library clerk shares out with the community, shares out with the other library clerks on what she's doing and how she's participating, as does our music teacher, who's the data guru and assessment person at his site. So they've also taken on larger roles within our district, which has been awesome.
Thank you so much. And thank you all again for attending, for being here, for the amazing work that you're doing, for all that you shared today. In the midst of a crisis, there's no one you can trust more than a teacher, right? Like, they're the most innovative, the most passionate, the most capable, the most caring. And you have definitely held the banner today and all that you've done. So thank you very much.
John, do you mind if I just wrap up by saying thank you to you for being such an excellent moderator, and also your passion for early literacy. And thank you to all of our panelists as well. Great job. And to everyone that tuned in and was a attendee. There was a question about if this recording this panel was recorded. So we'll make that link to the recording available to everyone who registered. We'll get you that to you. And I just want to thank you all for joining us and helping us talk a little bit more about what's working in Arizona and celebrate it, and celebrate Campaign for Grade Level Reading Week. And we hope to be bringing you a continued series of these kinds of conversations, and a cohort 2 of the case study project, and more to learn from everyone and all the experts in Arizona that we have that are doing great work. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Terri.
Bye.
Thank you, John.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Nice meeting you.